Welcome to Musings and Modalities. I'm your host, Tristen Stawicki. Think of me as your pragmatic shaman bestie. Join in with other high-vibe, lovely people as I unravel spiritual ideas to help create change and growth in your life. I cover a variety of spiritual topics, sharing knowledge to meet you wherever you are in your journey. As a shaman, astrologer, and human design reader, I help you understand how to make informed decisions and incorporate different modalities using discernment and your own intuition. Today, you will gain powerful shamanic healing tools you can use to incorporate spiritual practices in non-traditional ways. Whether you're just beginning or need a knowledgeable best friend with the next phase of your journey, I'm here to help. Stay tuned. Musings and Modalities starts now. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Musings and Modalities. I'm Tristen Stawicki, your shaman with an MBA, and I'm so excited for today's episode, The Power of the Unconscious, Debunking Hypnosis Myths and Finding Internal Support with Juliana Sloane. Before I bring out today's guest, I do want to share that I wrapped up with two incredible clients that I've been coaching for the last several months and have two spots that have opened up for business and leadership coaching that you can find at musingsandmodalities.com. And then my incredible guest today is Juliana, who is a hypnotherapist, meditation teacher, and a coach for the unconscious mind. Her work blends ancient wisdom traditions, hypnosis, and evidence-based approaches to help individuals create lasting transformation beyond really the conscious mind. She specializes in helping clients navigate stress, anxiety, and trauma, deepen confidence, and trust within themselves. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited for today's topic.
Me too. I've been so looking forward to our conversation. It's great to be here today.
Oh, same, same. Back in December, when you and I were talking about your work, you mentioned that you use different hypnosis modalities. I would love to learn more about them and how they're really, really impactful in your work.
Yeah, absolutely. There's several different ways that I work with people. Everything that I do works with the unconscious mind, works with altered states, from the subtle, like meditation, into altered state modalities like hypnosis, as well as shamanic journey work. And so, some of the primary modalities that I use, one is called depth hypnosis. It's DEPTH. I know sometimes it sounds like death hypnosis. It's not. Depth hypnosis is a really beautiful spiritual counseling modality that actually merges hypnosis and hypnotherapy with Buddhist wisdom, shamanic healing and journey work, and transpersonal psychology. So, this modality tends to be for people who have a little bit of an orientation as maybe a spiritual seeker, as someone who is really curious to get to the root. What can we uncover and get clarity and healing and understanding about when there feels like there is a pattern in our life that is just stuck? And no matter how many things we try, we keep on repeating the same pattern over and over and over. So, that is one of the primary modalities that I use working with folks. Another one is called integrative hypnosis. This one is a little bit less spiritual, a little bit more secular. It brings in really powerful neuroscience-backed tools to help people, again, change those patterns and transform things that feel like they were stuck and need something just beyond talking about it in therapy, beyond the different, workshops or personal growth books or retreats, that really offers something that's a way to work with our mind's innate neuroplasticity and make patterns change from the inside out.
That's so beautiful. And what I loved about what you just shared, was really the sense of when people get fed up and they're like, we've tried everything else, and sometimes there's that element of like, well, this has to work because what else is there? Or, oh, well, I'm open to this now because I just can't, find another five things to do. I'm at the end of kind of the rope with it. And so I'm sure you see
Absolutely.
that quite a lot. Yeah.
You just nailed it. One of the, I would say, biggest demographics of people that I end up working with are people who come and they say, I've already done therapy. I have a lot of personal awareness. I understand things at an emotional, psychological, intellectual level. I get the why, but I need more than just knowing why this is happening. I need to make a real change. So oftentimes it is the folks who are like, I am just so ready for this to be different. Yeah.
Because it has to be. Yeah, no, I completely resonate with that. One of the reasons I've talked about openly is I did, 4.5 years of EMDR therapy. And I was like, and that's all the healing I get? That's it, for that kind of commitment. And I was like, nope, I will literally try the things that are a little more esoteric because I have to find a different solution. I don't want to live with this anxiety.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's similar path as me, actually, Tristan. And I had been doing all the things.
Yeah.
And it gets you so far and then you kind of plateau. And when I started first working with meditation and then started working with shamanic journey work and hypnosis, it was like all of a sudden my life was changing and I was changing and things were different. I look back on it now, a few decades down that road, and the difference in what's happening in my life, the level of ease, the level of joy, the ways that I've set things in motion that really matter to me, and the ways that previously, I felt stuck, I felt anxious, I kept on repeating the same patterns over and over and feeling like, when is it ever going to change? And my sense was for a while there's just got to be something deeper. And
Mm.
so I really got curious. Well, okay, if it feels intuitively like there's something deeper, what is that deeper layer that we can actually get to and work with?
Absolutely. And what I love about what the work that you do is that there's misconceptions with it. And I get
Yeah.
this as well with, when people one of the most questions I get when I talk about being a shaman is around ashwagandha and different like use of different medicinal herbs. And that's so fascinating that that's people's one entry point to something that is very
Yeah.
varied in layer, and that's a small component of it. And so when you think of kind of this old and untrue depictions in media of the word hypnosis, I would love to hear kind of those three big misconceptions with your work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really hear you on the misconceptions about shamanic practice. In my own shamanic counseling work, I have to explain to people a lot, no, it's not, we're not even going to do plant medicine. We are accessing that state within ourselves
Right.
because we don't actually need anything but us to be able to have visionary experiences. So, thinking about some of those misconceptions with hypnosis, one of the big ones people will ask is, well, you know, am I just going to be totally out of control? We have seen in movies or, maybe your freshman year of college orientation, some kind of a stage hypnosis performance where you get someone up there on a stage and you do some things and you make them cluck like a chicken. We have seen things like this where people are doing either things that are silly or things that aren't necessarily what they want to do. And that's not what hypnosis really is, especially when we're using it in a hypnotherapeutic way. What we're really doing is actually allowing the client to be totally in control of their unconscious and conscious mind and getting instead of simply kind of being at the whims of their conscious mind getting to collaborate more and more fully with their unconscious mind. Because the truth of the matter is actually that, about 5% of our habits, beliefs, actions, decisions, behaviors, patterns are conscious. The other, 95 to 97%, this whole big piece of the pie, they're all happening at the unconscious level. So, what
Mm,
we're really doing is teaching the client to open this doorway so that they can move from that tiny conscious place into this much more bigger, wiser, more creative, unconscious mind that has so much more available to them. And, I often will tell people that I'm working with, it feels much more like being in two worlds at once. You're going to be aware of the FedEx guy at the door if he comes to deliver a package, but you're also going to be in this dreamlike, creative, imaginative space where deeper internal change is possible. So that is definitely one of the really, really big ones. Another of the misconceptions that comes around sometimes is, well, I don't know if I can get hypnotized. I might be one of those people who can't get hypnotized. And the fact of the matter, which is so beautiful and so to our advantage, is that you and I, all of us are in and out of trance all the time. When we get lost in the plot of a movie, we're in trance. When we read a novel and we can like envision the characters and we're excited when something good happens for them and we cry when something bad happens, we're in trance. When we're driving to a place that we've driven to over and over and over again, we're not paying granular attention to how we're shifting or braking or when we're putting on the turn signal. We're just sort of doing the thing. That's a kind of trance. So the truth is actually that the human brain is designed day in, day out to go in and out of these trance-like states. All we're doing with hypnosis is taking that innate ability to go into trance and using it to our advantage, using it as a tool to be able to create change and healing and happiness. So that is definitely one of those places that I think people can get a little bit confused. Um, another, I would say, kind of the third misconception that I see a lot is this understanding, and a lot of this is from TV, movies, different things like that, where the hypnotist is basically just sort of telling them, oh, you're going to stop smoking, you're going to lose weight, whatever. And it's sort of this top-down, authoritative person reading from a script or telling them how it's going to be. And the great thing, that's a super old school model. It's not done so much anymore. I'm sure you could find some people who still do, but most of the people who are really on the cutting edge of hypnosis these days, it's an interactive process. So when you're with me in trance, you're actually talking throughout. You're telling me about your experience. We're finding our way through your inner world. We're kind of on this journey together, and every step of the way is actually guided by your feedback, your inner knowing, your sense of, okay, what am I actually experiencing here? So it's very collaborative, actually, and that power dynamic that, old-timey. We're not going there anymore. That power dynamic is really a thing of the past.
mm. That makes complete sense. Yeah. And it's so often that movies and other forms of media, they like, have a snapshot from like 40 years ago that they just keep. And because it's then a trope, they'll keep using it, even though,
Exactly.
yeah, the science has moved well beyond that. I also think the way that I think about it, because I've had hypno-regression therapy done, and I really, really enjoyed it. I think a couple of things I wanted to share about it is I too was like, oh, well, I'm a shaman, hair flip. Like, can I even reach trance? Like, will I be open to it? Like things like that. And I was like, no, 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 this is a collaboration, as you said. Like, it's if I come to this open-hearted, of course it's gonna work. And like I had to do a reframe even in my own head because I was like, there was that piece of me, even though I know it's not true, that about the control, like, oh, someone else's session, there is a little bit of, I don't want to say an imbalance there, but an element of trust, of deep
Yeah,
trust you have to have kind of immediately. And so it's really important as you're kind of vetting folks and looking at folks to do this work with that you have a deep understanding of their values first and foremost.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I also wanted to share just kind of on the I think of it as play a little bit with prompts, right? Because it doesn't, and for me, it doesn't matter whether or not the memories I have are true or actually what I experienced. It's what I feel and what my brain is serving up to say this will help you move through it. And I just want
Yes.
to get a sense if you have clients that are focused very much on like, oh, did this happen? Did it not happen? Versus kind of the overall experience they're getting.
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I tend to hold it, one, I mean, first, what matters most is actually what does the client think? If we have a past life regression that comes up and they believe in past lives and it's super meaningful to them in that way, well, awesome. That's great. I am here for that. I'm a Buddhist teacher, so past lives and reincarnation are a part of that whole package. But the great thing about things like that with past life regression, especially, um, and really all of these different processes, is that we can interpret them as something that happened. We can also interpret them as our mind's brilliance coming up with an incredible teaching metaphor. Part of the reason that hypnosis actually works is that the unconscious mind, it functions really in this realm of archetype and metaphor and imagery and sensation that is, less verbal, less talky, much more cinematic, and symbolic. And so, with any hypnotic process, part of what we're doing is we're speaking the language of the unconscious mind, and the language of the unconscious mind is symbol and metaphor. And so, we can hold it lightly in that way, or we can hold it as, yeah, absolutely. You just did a soul retrieval. You just went to a past life. You just released something energetically that belonged to your ancestors and doesn't belong to you anymore. Both of these things and everything in between, there's room for all of it.
Mm, I love that. No, that's beautiful. And how do you find kind of this energetic state of most clients are? Because that's something there's always with especially deep energetic work, you hope they experience kind of the elements of the spa or a yoga class, right? But sometimes there is a deeper healing and there's a little bit of depletion. So I'd love to just talk through that a little bit and kind of what you commonly see.
Yeah, absolutely. It oftentimes is really rejuvenating. It can feel very magical. One of my one of my favorites, common responses often is somebody comes out of trance and will often say, "Whoa, what just happened? What was that?" Because it does feel like magic. It really does. One of the ways, though, of course, we're working with energy. We're using the mind in a way that's a little bit different than we normally do. So the common things that I see in terms of, yeah, like if there is a depletion, usually people can, if there is anything like that, they might have a mild headache. They might feel like, oh, wow, it almost feels like I went to the gym, even though I've just been sitting here in this trance-like state. And really, that's just because we're using energy and the mind in a different way than we're used to. And that does take up energy. So I always encourage people, go get a glass of water, go have a snack after the session, maybe go sit or walk outside for a couple minutes, feel the sun, because it can be really nice to have that sort of support to transition back into ordinary reality.
And I also find sometimes it wasn't even the session, it's people have stopped long enough, as
Yeah.
well. So it could be a culmination of their day-to-day life kind of catching up with them. They've paused
Absolutely.
for an hour, 90 minutes, and then they go,
Yes.
oh, wow, it actually is nice to rest. Let me stay in this.
Absolutely. That's a phenomena that I see, especially leading meditation retreats, is as soon as people get on retreat, there's something in their system that knows that they actually just got permission to rest for a few days. And the sleepiness that can set in those first couple of days is profound. And it's really, yep, the body needs rest and it finally slowed down.
Absolutely. No, it so does. Before I know, I definitely want to spend some time talking about your upcoming retreat in April, which I'm so excited to talk about. I want to talk about using Zoom because this is a common question. You and I both use, a platform, a video platform to hold our sessions and to do healing work. And, I've seen incredible benefits with it where the energetics of my space, stays pretty clean. I can do my own clearing. They can grab a snack, grab water. They don't have to drive right after deep healing, which is beautiful. But I'd love to just hear from you kind of the biggest benefits that you found for you and your clients.
Absolutely. I also love working with people on Zoom for all of the reasons that you've stated. The fact that I can bring someone into a deep, maybe trippy feeling, powerful trance state, and then they do not have to get on the highway and drive at 75 miles an hour is such a gift. I know that it's really good for me. I know it's really great for my clients. And especially, one of the things that I think is really powerful about this, in addition to everything you've already named, which I'm in full agreement on, I work with a lot of very busy, very high achieving people who've got a lot going on in their life. And they might be juggling their own business, raising children, having a busy family and social calendar. And the fact that we can actually carve out space in the middle of the day. And it's not going to take a whole weekend. It's not going to take the entire afternoon. The fact that somebody can come in, do this powerful work, and relatively seamlessly transition right back into the rest of their life. This is one of the reasons too, that I really love this as an alternative for people who are interested in, trying psychedelic assisted therapy or plant medicine. And the biggest hindrance is, well, where do you find time in your schedule to, spend days um, out somewhere at an ayahuasca ceremony, or, many days working with a practitioner at a clinic. And there's something really, really beautiful about being able to offer transformative experiences that are contained, that are gentle, that aren't so disruptive that someone can go about their life. That to me is incredibly supportive, because your healing work should support all parts of you. And that includes the part of you that needs to pay the bills, the part of you that's busy raising kids, the part of you that, is trying to expand in a career that you're really passionate about, which maybe means you don't have that much time and space.
And carving out an hour, 90 minutes, or what have you is the maximum they have.
Yes.
That's their act of self-care. And the idea of a weekend or an evening or whatever it is unfathomable for
Yeah.
a lot of folks, which we honor and hold space for.
Yeah, exactly.
As you think about some common themes that you've seen come up for folks, I'd love to hear if there's one or two that you wanted to touch on for the audience today.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that's been coming up a lot lately, I work with a lot of women who are in leadership roles. And some of that is nonprofit sector, some of that is corporate, some of it is creative, the arts, or solopreneurs. It's a real scope. And one of the big things that has been coming up over and over is just seeing the way that this work, either as an intentional or an unintentional side effect, builds trust and self-confidence and a sense of really profound inner discernment. The amount of women who I've worked with who say, this helps me be more of who I want to be in all parts of my life, including my job, or who say, I trust myself now. I used to doubt and second guess my decisions. And now I don't. I know that I make wise decisions. To me, being able to strengthen and bolster that sense of, internal confidence and direction and discernment is really, really important.
Especially because once they have that, they can trust their teams. Because I always find if, a leader can't trust themselves, the level of trust they have with their team and,
Yes.
you know, um, with their colleagues is is very low, and that can be really challenging. I often think about like I've been really sitting with this phrase, like, don't let your corporate trauma be your team's problem. And that's been coming up a
Yes.
lot for me
Yes.
recently, in some of the work I've been doing with clients. And I've tried to like kind of reiterate that because, yeah, it's
Yeah.
not your team's problem. Like, do
Yeah.
that work within, to be
Yeah.
the leader, show up as the person you want to be, um, because that's the way you can do the most good and have the most impact.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think as a former leader in an organization myself, and having seen this dynamic play out so many times, one of the most important things that you can do as a leader, if you're encountering that friction, is inner work with yourself before you bring it into your team. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So, in our last few minutes, please give us all the details about your upcoming retreat. It's in late April, right? Like, let's talk about the benefits of attending retreats, how it accelerates the healing process. Please give us all those
Yeah,
details.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I'll share with you about the retreat. I'll share a little about my one-on-one work too. I work with individuals one-on-one using all of these different modalities and more. You can find that on my website. It's julianasloane.com. And I've got a couple slots right now, although things have been filling very quickly. But there's I think a couple left. And the retreat that I'll be offering, this is April 30th to May 3rd. It's in Northern California through a great organization called Off Grid Retreats. And this is a glamping women's meditation retreat. So we are going to be in a beautiful, beautiful natural setting with redwoods and meadows and those gorgeous big canvas tents with, actual comfortable bedding. And we'll be spending time practicing mindful meditation, nature-based meditation, and a little bit of relational mindfulness. And so this is a space really for women to come in together to get some peace, some time in silence, some time for reflection, but also some time to connect with a group of other, really fantastic women. So that's on my website as well, and I know I'll give you that link for the show notes. But if you're interested in a weekend retreat, it's partially in silence, partially not. So there's space for a little bit of everything there.
That's so lovely. And I love that everything about how you've kind of planned the retreat and, the agenda and everything is just so mindful in the way you want to meet the needs of everyone, like having the silent moments, having the moments of connection and community. That's just really, really beautiful to not have just one facet of healing because it does accelerate and do those quantum leaps that many people find when they do a full weekend and longer retreats.
Absolutely. It is so, so profoundly important to take some time away when you can. Yeah.
Mhm. Was there any last thoughts that you had as we wrap up the episode?
I think that that's the most of it. It's so nice to be here with you today, Tristan. Thank you for
Same.
having me.
Oh, same, same. It flew by, but I feel like we covered everything that we wanted to, which is always a great gift, to do. And I feel like we shared some really impactful information just about, removing some misconceptions about, the work that you do. And I just so appreciate you. And I always love, anytime we're able to chat.
Oh, so, so good to be with you again today.
Same. Awesome. Thank you so much for watching Musings and Modalities with me, your pragmatic shaman bestie. Tune in the second and fourth Thursdays of each month at 3:30 p.m. Pacific, 6:30 p.m. Eastern for more fabulous episodes. Thank you for listening. You've been listening to Musings and Modalities with me, Tristen, your pragmatic shaman bestie. For more powerful healing tools, join me every second and fourth Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. I cover a variety of topics to meet you wherever you are at on your spiritual journey. Learn techniques to work with pendulums, past life healing, astrology, and more. Please share the show and subscribe for more guidance from your pragmatic shaman bestie at musingsandmodalities.com.